and welcome back to Space. This week we're diving into something super fun. Let's talk about some space movies. I feel like I'm gonna lose some subscribers because if y'all haven't found out by now, I am opinionated as hell. And I feel like I'm relatively well versed on space things, so my opinions are based somewhat in reality. I'm also gonna be using Rotten Tomatoes and just how I felt about it, so keep that in mind. And also, not everything is on this list. And also, please don't watch this if you haven't seen the movies. The last thing I need is to get cyberbullied for spoiling the ending to a movie. I made that mistake once with Game of Thrones and I'm not doing it again, folks. Okay, so let's get into the top 10 space movies with honorable mentions to the ones I really hate. Okay guys, let's start out with an honorable mention to my least favorite space movie ever, Ad Astra. Da-na-na-na, what the was that? I mean, I was really excited to watch this movie. Brad Pitt, as hot as can be, him in space, heck yeah. But then I watched it and I was like, oh no. It was awful. For those of you who don't know, it's a movie about this weird power surge and then a guy, Brad Pitt, trying to find his father, Tommy Lee Jones, and his father has not communicated with Earth in forever, so they're gonna send his son to go and tell him if he doesn't succeed, then Spacecom, NASA-esque, agency will kill him. I've watched this movie and I can't tell you what it's about because I don't even know. This movie is really essentially about a father and son relationship. Why it's set in space? I have no idea. And then there's some weird stuff like space monkeys that come out of nowhere that don't propel the story forward whatsoever. Honestly, I did enjoy the world building, but other than that, it was a huge flop for me, folks. I fell asleep and woke up and the same stuff was going on and I had it. Number 5. Now we're moving to the film that we all love and know, The Martian. This film was made in 2015 starring Matt Damon, directed by Ridley Scott. If you're not familiar with the story, it's about Matt Damon's character who's an astronaut going on a mission to Mars and then he's presumed dead after a storm and he's left behind by his own crew, but Matt Damon, being Matt Damon, survived and finds himself stranded and he has to figure out how to work with the environment and keep himself alive. Why does Matt Damon get stranded everywhere? I really enjoyed this movie. The only problem I had with it was I made the mistake of reading the novel first. I loved, and I mean loved, the novel. I don't know how it would be without reading the novel first. I understand when you convert a novel to movies, you have some sacrifices to make of the elements of the story. However, I really did miss the kick-ass PR woman that's in the book, played by Kristen Wiig. It was received well, getting a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes and received 2 Golden Globe Awards for Best Motion Picture and Best Actor. Moving right along, number 4, my favorite number. Okay, let's talk about a throwback in a 1997 American film named Contact. What happens in the film is so interesting. It's not just the story, but it was a film adapted of the 1985 novel of the same name, written by the one, the only Carl Sagan. Carl Sagan and his wife wrote the story outline for the film, and Jodie Foster plays the protagonist. It's about a scientist who finds strong evidence of extraterrestrial life, and the extraterrestrial life has decided to make its first contact. It also stars a young Matthew McConaughey, wow, can't say his name, and Rob Lowe, and a couple of other well-known names. I love this movie because it talks about pursuing your dreams, and if you have an idea, you push for it and you make it work. And I know that sounds weird when we're talking about talking to aliens, but that is exactly what this movie depicts. And the scene where she goes on the beach and through the wormhole and then she gets back and they're like, oh my God, it didn't work. And she's like, no, it did work. Oh, how fun was that? And I'm a huge fan of Jodie Foster. It really stretches your imagination. It received a 78% on Rotten Tomatoes and didn't win anything in particular, but this is a cult classic. I've seen it a million times and I would gladly see it again. Number 3. 2001, A Space Odyssey. This is a classic, right? Surprisingly enough, I had yet to see this movie until 2 years ago. They were doing something for its 50th anniversary, and I was shocked that I have not seen it yet. I had not seen it yet. What is English? This movie was inspired by Arthur C. Clarke's story, The Sentinel. And the screenplay for this movie was written by Stanley Kubrick and Arthur C. Clarke. To be honest, I don't really understand a lot about this movie. From the beginning, the prehistoric vibes, and the ending, I was like, oh my God, what am I watching? But then after I went down a rabbit hole of YouTube videos, but All in all, I really enjoyed how this movie took risks, and it really created a whole new world. What does space travel look like? They tried to identify that. I also love the idea of a sentient spacecraft that ultimately takes over, and that freaked me out and also intrigues me. I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that. How creepy. This movie has gone down as one of the most influential space movies of all time and one of the most controversial, but it did get an 89% on Rotten Tomatoes and is easily one of the top cult classic films. There's a lot in here that I'm sure y'all know way more about than I do. Honestly, I need to watch this about 10 more times and possibly write a thesis paper before I fully understand everything. Number dos. Apollo 13. Talk about a classic. I grew up watching this movie, especially being in an Apollo family. I thought it was so fun to see the people I knew on the big screen. And it also opened the door for my father to talk about what happened in Apollo 13 and also the Apollo 1 fire. It's that beautiful scene with Tom Hanks talking to his son about the Apollo 1 fire and how it happened, and it was very respectful to that disaster. I honestly think it's one of the best space movies based on true events. It's masterfully done, from the story to the character and the stakes. Also, this is the film that made the "Houston, we have a problem" line immortalized. If you don't know, this follows the tense days of the Apollo 13 lunar mission crisis in 1970. Events recreated in this epic historical drama from Ron Howard, astronaut Dim Lovell, played by Tom Hanks, Leeds Command Module pilot Jack Swigert, Kevin Bacon, and lunar module driver Fred Hayes, Bill Paxton, on what is slated as NASA's third lunar landing mission. They're living their best life in space until an exploding oxygen tank threatens the crew's oxygen and power supplies as the courageous astronauts face the dilemma of either suffocating or freezing to death. Now that is a bad day. But don't worry, they figured it out. And again, this is the best movie. It received an 87% on Rotten Tomatoes. It was like so much. It was nominated for a whopping 9 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, and it won Best Film Editing and Best Sound. The budget was $52 million, but get this, guys, it made $355.2 million in the box office, and I would gladly give them my money every time I watch this movie because it is a great picture. And the number one, there's a tie. I couldn't choose. So let's start with number one, number two. Interstellar. Oh, this movie, the best. First of all, it's stacked with an amazing cast. Matthew McConaughey, Anne Hathaway, Jessica Chastain, Bill Irwin, and Michael Caine. Yeah. Oh, and did I mention that this is directed by Christopher Nolan? Oh, and by the way, the music is by Hans Zimmer. Dying! This movie tells the tale of a dystopian future where humanity is struggling to survive, and the film follows a group of astronauts who travel through a wormhole near Saturn in search of a new home for humanity. When I first watched this movie, I was all about it until the last part where Matthew McConaughey is screaming and floating around in a weird time loop. But then I thought more about it, and I liked it more. I realized that I actually loved it. The first act set up a lot for the last act to follow through and pay off. I loved the need for humanity to work together to find another solution to Earth and the lies right under the surface of almost every character. Oh my God, and that scene where Matthew McConaughey is crying watching the videos from home. So sad. Anyway, this movie did really well. It won the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects and was nominated for Best Original Score. Duh. Best Sound Mixing, Best Sound Editing, and Best Production Design, and received an 85% on Rotten Tomatoes. The budget, guys, listen to this. The budget was $165 million, but it made $677.5 million in the box office. Again, one of my favorite movies. I love the soundtrack. I listen to it anytime I write. Highly recommend. And the number one, October Sky. You know what? I totally forgot about this movie and was just content with having Interstellar be the number one video. But then someone mentioned October Sky and I was like, oh my God, I have to put that in. I mentioned growing up with Apollo 13, but I think I grew up with this one more. This is a biographical movie that follows a very young and adorable Jake Gyllenhaal in a town where all the boys grow up to be coal miners, and Homer Hickman, Jake, has no way out until the Soviet satellite Sputnik flies over the October sky and changes everything. Then he embarks on a mission to build and launch a homemade rocket with his loyal friends. Aww, how heartwarming. If you have not seen this movie, go see it, or just stay where you are and then watch it. Also, he's fighting with his dad throughout the entire movie, and that is played by the legendary Chris Cooper. Oh man, very passionate about this. And also, Laura Dern was the teacher that believed in him. What a career she's had. It got an 88% on Rotten Tomatoes and didn't really win anything important, but it did win my heart, and that's what counts, people. Okay guys, well that's it for this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed the change of pace and the array of different topics, and if not, please let us know. We want to make sure you're enjoying it. And why don't you leave a comment about your opinions on my opinions? It'll be opinionception. All right guys, thanks so much. Have a wonderful week. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe, and go and watch October Sky. It's the best. It doesn't matter if it's March. You can still watch it. October Sky. Interstellar. Passengers. Okay guys, bye.